FBI agent Peter Strzok was grilled on Capitol Hill over a text exchange with a colleague he was having an affair with during the 2016 presidential campaign. The woman texted about Trump. She asked the question, he's not ever going to be president, is he? And Strzok, the FBI agent, responded, no, he's not. We'll stop it. Okay, so that has caused a hullabaloo with the Republican Congress. They're going bananas. And yesterday they had a hearing. Here's his explanation.
In terms of the text that we will stop it, you need to understand that that was written late at night, off the cuff, and it was in response to a series of events that included then-candidate Trump insulting the immigrant family of a fallen war hero. And my presumption, based on that horrible, disgusting behavior, that the American population would not elect somebody demonstrating that behavior to be president of the United States.
So essentially he's saying it wasn't I who was saying, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not I or the FBI that's saying we will stop him. It's the American people who should have been so appalled by the way he attacked a Gold Star family that they would never vote for him. P.S.
You know, it's Khizr Khan. I always want to say their name. His name is Khizr Khan.
Yes.
Right, and at the time, I remember when that happened, and, you know, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, and, you know, I'm a lifelong Republican, I'm a conservative first, though, I was so horrified by that, and I remember I called Trump a silver spoon draft dodger at the time, because how dare he go after Khizr Khan and his family and all of that.
When he avoided the draft
when he avoided the
5
draft
times.
himself. It was just a really low point. Another low point was when he attacked your father. You know, Trump seems to have
many low points.
Yes, but this was during at that point in the campaign.
To have many low points.
And so I understand the concern Republicans had that, oh, you know, this guy was in the FBI. He was head of the Hillary Clinton email investigation, and he did something to stop Trump. But this was a personal conversation. He's only one of many guys. If you saw other clips, it'll show where he talks about there's multiple layers in an investigation of that level. He couldn't stop anything by himself. And if he wanted to stop Donald Trump, he could have simply leaked to the press that Trump was under investigation with the Russians.
Him for that.
That's right. And he did not do that. So if he wanted to stop him, he could have done that.
The investigation. That wasn't his only text. He said, just went to Southern Virginia Walmart. I could smell the Trump support. There were a lot of very anti-conservative, incendiary things said between the texts. I will say, Congressman Steve Cohen wanted to give him a, quote, Purple Heart. If I could give you a Purple Heart, I would. You deserve one. Yesterday, I went home and I watched a ton of the hearings, and I thought it was kabuki theater on both sides. Both congressmen on each side of the aisle just trying to get clips on MSNBC and Fox News.
It's crazy.
They should pull the cameras out of these hearings because everyone's just grandstanding for it.
I want to see them.
But the problem is you have people saying when you sit, I'm sorry, telling someone if you are offended by Khizr Khan, you should be offended by a congressman saying that he deserves a Purple Heart. That's a big thing for somebody.
He was talking about the abuse he was taking in the hearing. That's what he was referring to.
It's ridiculous. People get their legs blown off and stuff to get Purple Hearts.
But I actually think the back and forth, considering we're dealing with an intelligence agency, I went back and forth with Carly, my producer, and we were debating whether this is transparency to have this on here. I feel like when we come to intelligence agencies, we should be handling these with care. They should be separate from the normal open.
Well, they don't talk about anything classified.
Well, the problem is they did ask him and then decided they were going to charge him with contempt. You can't put...
Which was unfair.
It's unfair, and you just can't do that out in the open like this because the whole point is we want to protect intelligence. We want to protect national security. These should be handled on the side.
Which they have, because I worked, just really quick, just to clarify that point, I worked on Capitol Hill for many years, and I've sat through many hearings of all kinds, and I've never seen anything like that. It was a kangaroo court. I'm very ashamed. They do closed-door hearings for sensitive information.
Because the problem was
it's an oversight function.
And because
it's supposed to be so the American people can see what's going on.
We want to see what's going on.
But Alan Dershowitz brought up that rather than a Mueller investigation, there should be a commission like 911 where it's separate, bipartisan, and not playing out politically. This didn't accomplish anything. When you see it, it actually was a mirror of the uncivil nature of what we're doing in politics these days.
Well, a lot of these Republican congressmen, but basically
Republican, there were Democrats doing it on the other side.
Democrats too, but the Republican congressmen were basically saying to their base, "See, I'm with
Democrats
Trump,"
as well.
and they're afraid of losing their seats because they have to agree with Trump and protect Trump from the truth and from the Mueller investigation.
Trey Gowdy is stepping down. He's not going to be in office anymore. He's not worried about anything. He is. You got your wish. Oh, please with the clapping. He's one of the good ones.
I think he's not.
Yes, he is. This is the problem. Do you want Trump people or do you want non-Trump people?
Where's the bell?
I hate that bell.
He hates that bell.
Bell.
Okay, we'll be right back with more hot topics.
To Greenville, South Carolina, and Trey Gowdy, chairman of the House Oversight Committee. That's one of the committees investigating Russian meddling in the 2016 election. Congressman, you just heard President Trump once again refer to the Russia probe as a witch hunt, and he specifically referred to the hearing that you chaired this past week with FBI agent Peter Strzok as proof of his claim. Do you agree with the president's assertions, and they do seem aimed here at discrediting the Mueller probe?
I don't think it's a witch hunt. I've never thought it was a witch hunt. We now have two series of indictments against Russians, one for the social media, the other for the unlawful intrusions. Russia attacked this country in 2016. That's the number one thing we've asked Mueller to look at. What did Russia do? The second part, which unfortunately is where the hyper focus is with whom, if anyone, did they do it? Margaret, no Americans have been indicted with respect to conspiring to impact the 2016 elections. My focus is on the first thing. What did Russia do? And that's not a witch hunt. That's an attack on our country.
So you're right, no Americans were charged, but 12 Russian military intelligence officers were for attacking the DNC and other Democratic organizations, going after Hillary Clinton's emails, and also attempting to break into state election boards. So how should Americans understand this?
That this is an attack on all of us. Our elections are just that, Margaret. They're our elections. And Republicans and Democrats are free to fight among and with themselves. But that fight ends at the border. And I would ask the president to give some serious consideration. Your first request of Vladimir Putin needs to be, tell us which airport we can pick up the 25 Russians that tried to interfere with the fundamentals of our democracy. If you really claim you had nothing to do with it, then you should be as shocked as we were that your military was being used to impact our election. Tell us where you're going to extradite those folks, because an American grand jury indicted them for undermining our democracy.
You have now heard over 20 hours of testimony from Peter Strzok, who was named by the president there. You also met with Lisa Page, a lawyer at the FBI involved with this. Friday, I think you're meeting with her again tomorrow. In your investigations, have you seen any evidence of an anti-Trump bias at the FBI?
Sure. An anti-Trump bias? Absolutely. You just mentioned two of them, Strzok and Page. I mean, Strzok was biased against Trump before he began investigating him. Of course, on August the 6th, he promised to stop his candidacy. On the 15th, he talked about an insurance policy. I think the most damning piece of evidence, Margaret, with respect to bias is the day Bob Mueller was announced, Special Agent Peter Strzok wasn't talking about indictments like you and I just were. He wasn't talking about defending the country like you and I are. He's talking about impeaching the president. That is an unprecedented level of bias. Now, how pervasive it was beyond those two, I think there are 4 or 5 other unidentified Bureau and Department agents and employees who also had bias, but there are 13,000 FBI agents, and 99.9% of them are doing exactly what you would want them to do and exactly the way you would want them to do it.
Well, that's a point here, though, that seems to be getting lost, or at least when the president is speaking, he's conflating these specific individuals, the number you put 4 or 5, with the entire intelligence organization that is the FBI, and there is some concern that that is corrosive to our democracy. Do you fear that your hearing is being used in that way?
Well, our private hearing was much more constructive than the public hearing. I mean, public hearings are a circus, Margaret. I mean, that's why I don't like to do them. I don't do many of them. I mean, it's a freak show. I mean, the private interviews are much more constructive. But I would also say this. I mean, put yourself in President Trump's shoes for just a second. Jim Comey thought that impeachment was too good for you. John Brennan says you should be in the dustbin of history. Those are not insignificant people. One headed the FBI, the other headed the CIA when you were under investigation. The lead FBI agent said that you would be destabilizing for the country and promised to stop your candidacy. I mean, Margaret, if you were being investigated by people who had that level of bias and animus against you, I think you would be concerned as well. What I would tell the president is no American has been indicted for conspiring to hack the DNC. But Russia did attack us. So focus on the first prong of that Mueller jurisdiction. Let the second prong play out. But so far, the with whom, if anyone, did they do it, we've got a big zero with respect to Americans.
But to play devil's advocate here, there were other Republicans who were questioning the president as a candidate and comments he made and whether that made him fit for office. So, I mean, you're not trying to argue that only Trump supporters should be involved with this investigation.
No, and thank God Republican candidates for president aren't in charge of counterintelligence investigations. I mean, put politicians in one heap. I mean, thank God we don't put them in charge of major investigations. Peter Strzok was supposed to be a counterintelligence expert. He was put in charge of the probe, and he's going from talking about stopping him to he hopes he resigns to impeachment. Margaret, keep in mind, his main concern when he was trying to deliberate on whether or not to be part of Mueller's probe is that it might not lead to impeachment. I mean, if you were a counterintelligence expert, this is a chance of a lifetime to fight for your country against Russia, and you're concerned that it might not lead to impeachment. I mean, no American would want Peter Strzok investigated them if he had that amount of animus against them. None of us would.
Are you going to sign on to this effort to impeach Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein that House Republicans are talking about putting forward this week?
No. For what? Impeaching for what? No.
Inappropriate.
I've had my differences with Rod Rosenstein. I talk to him quite often, privately, which again is a lot more constructive than the public hearings we have. He's a Trump appointee. So is Jeff Sessions. So is Chris Wray. If President Trump is dissatisfied with Rod Rosenstein, he can fire him with a tweet. But to impeach someone, I mean, no, I would not be. I'm not convinced there is a movement. I read about it in Politico, and sometimes their sources are better than mine, but I'm not part of that.
Very quickly, are you going to investigate who the congressional candidate was who was in contact with the conspirators? This is named in the indictment.
I would love to know who that was. So I hope you'll investigate it. I'm going to try to find out who it is. Now, this is an unindicted. I mean, that's important. Whatever this person didn't rise to the level of criminality. But I am incredibly disappointed that any member of Congress would reach out to WikiLeaks or Julian Assange or Lucifer and try to get dirt on a Democrat. That is very disappointing. I don't know who it is, but I'd love it if you or I found out who it was.
All right. Well, when you find out, get back to us, Congressman. Thank you very much for your time. We'll be back in 1 minute with a lot more Face the Nation, including conversation with the number 2 in the Senate, John Cornyn. Don't go away.